All right. Hey, can you blow this up? Like, Door's not showing that up there. Is that possible? All right. There we go. And if you can get those lights up there. Hey, everybody. Welcome in. Didn't get my hair brushed today, so threw on the baseball cap. It's that time of the year, though. I've been wearing a lot of those toboggans or whatever you like to call them, and I've got really thin, fine hair, and it gets really staticky and just hard to manage this time of the year. Cold Ontario. All right. Got people from all over. I know some of these names. I've met some of these people. Sevierville. All right. Hope everybody's planning for their upcoming year. I know that I am. Always kind of get burned out a little bit towards the end of the year, and it's always by late January, early February. I'm just chomping at the bit. Thankfully for us in Tennessee, yeah. Well, I don't know. Shift that a little bit towards me. Thankfully for those of us in Tennessee, though, around April, I mean, we're really busy. So we're really not that far away. It's not going to be that much longer, and we're going to be dealing with swarm cells and splits and all kinds of different things. So Troy said, how about this upcoming Middle Tennessee weather? Well, right now it's pretty cold for us. You know, we're still only dropping down into the teens, maybe getting the single digits in a couple locations. I don't think so. But then it's supposed to get up into the 50s in about a week, be pretty mild. They did get a good bit of ice in western Tennessee and Kentucky, though, about a 1/4 inch of ice. And so we didn't get any of that here at all. But anyways, it's not going to be that long. It's only a month and a half until heavy swarm cell production in a mild year, which this one hasn't been extremely mild at all. I have cut cells out of big double colonies in the second week of March. So it's really not that far away. All right. I saw a question up there. Is a 5-frame nuke too small to start a package with drawn comb? I'm in Idaho. Thanks. You totally can do it, Matt. There are people who start packages in 5-frame nucleus colonies. The thing of it is, if it's got a good queen and it's a 3-pound package, it's not going to take long until they're going to need more space. However, if you have a nucleus setup where you're adding another story on top, I mean that can work. Bees actually do a little bit better in thinner cavities to a degree. It's not to the extent of what some people say, especially once it gets in the warm part of the season. I think a lot of that bonus to the smaller, thinner cavities kind of diminishes to a degree. But especially in those colder months in Idaho, you all get really cold. You start them in that and they climb up like a chimney and follow that heat current, then that can work out pretty good for them, help them maybe draw combs faster. But you totally can do it. The problem is if you're wanting to move them over into a 10-frame or 8-frame setup, then you've got to do that pretty quickly because they'll outgrow that 5-frame nuke in probably a month and a half at the latest. You definitely want to get to it before it gets out of control and starts, because they'll start making swarm cells in a 5-frame nuke pretty quick. It's one of the things that we really struggle with selling nukes is we want to have the best quality for our customers, but we also don't want them swarming on us. And really the fine line between those two things is pretty tight, especially if you get a good nectar flow and it plugs up that 5-frame nuke. And oh boy, yeah, it's funny. We love honey flows when we're trying to produce honey, but a strong honey flow in nucleus production or even queen production can actually be a little bit of a pain in the rear end. So Benjamin says that, he was in Knoxville and now he's in LA. So they're getting a lot of brood. It's going to get colder. Should we bowl ahead and start going into spring mode? Personally, if there's plenty of bee coverage, that they should be fine as long as they have the resources that they need. You might lose a little bit of brood on the edges of the cluster if it gets really cold, but you'll probably be all right. Southern beekeepers, it's time to get ready for spring, especially if you're further south than I am or have more mild weather than I do. Then, things are getting really serious. Some of my friends down in Florida and southern Alabama, they have really nice brood patterns, pollen's coming in on, nice warm periods, and, the bees are building up. So definitely work towards that. And I would, the bees are wanting to go full steam ahead, and so I do too. Thanks for coming on, Cami. You're welcome. Colorado Rocky Mountains. Hey, I would love to go skiing on some Rocky Mountains right now. I absolutely love to ski. I haven't done that in years. I'd probably be so sore I couldn't stand the next day. Are you selling overwintered nukes? Aaron, no, I'm not. And I haven't even released any order forms for anything this year. I think I'm going to focus more on queens this year. And I'm not going to be taking a lot of pre-orders on things. I am going to be selling some nukes, but not as many as I did last year. I'm going to focus more on queens this year instead. And so that's why no one's seen anything from me about selling nukes and all that kind of stuff. When the time comes, I'll announce that. So if you want to follow me on my Facebook page and on YouTube, that's where you'll hear about it. Nottingham, UK. All right. -38. Oh, my goodness. Hey, we do have a couple more videos from Hawaii. I've got several little snippets that I'm going to try to piece together into one video. But I'm glad that you're enjoying them, Larry. I've actually got one that I'll be airing tomorrow on a custom boom lift that is pretty awesome. I wish I had the skills to make one myself. Yeah, Don's got drone cells down there in close to Birmingham, Alabama. Not too surprising. I bet I'll be seeing some drone cells here in the next couple of weeks. The way this year is, I'm going to say probably the 7th to 10th of March. Not as quick as normal, but I might see some. Again, I've moved away from Italian bees. Pretty much 90% of what I run is carnies, and they just don't try to rear as much brood until they really feel a lot of those pollens start hitting. So we really haven't had a whole lot of significant amount of pollens, hoping that maple pollen will really hit hard soon. Got a little bit of work on the maples the other day, but I think the bees could just kind of smell it starting, and I didn't really see any pollen baskets. How long would you keep quart jars of 1-to-1 on before worrying about it turning? Oh, goodness. 1-to-1 turns pretty quick, within a week for sure. That's without any additives. Honestly, a good healthy colony, though, should take down a quart jar of 1-to-1 in a day, unless it's really tiny, and then it should just be a few days. But, I really don't like to leave syrup on more than just 3 or 4 days, and I like them to chug it down. I'd rather go back and keep feeding. That's just the kind of the way I do it. But there's definitely different ways, but not more than a week. Week would be tops, and then I'd be concerned about it getting a little too fermented. And there's some variables there, because if you're going into winter, then that's a problem. I mean, you don't want to have anything but the best for your bees going into winter. But if you're feeding them and it gets just slightly a little bit spoiled, just a tiny bit, it's really not going to affect them a whole lot in summer. That if they get a little bit of roughage in their gut, they can just take a cleansing flight, no problem. Come to Vermont. We have 3 or more feet of snow. Hey, John, I would love to come to Vermont. It's on my bucket list. I want to get some of that maple syrup up there, like right from the local guys. And I appreciate what you sent me down. Also, I've heard that they have ice cream made from maple syrup up there, which is pretty awesome. Makes me wonder, why don't we have some honey ice cream? We actually have made some homemade stuff, but I'd like to be able to get like at a store. Wouldn't that be cool? Hey, Bruce Bees. Hey, buddy. I appreciate that. Yeah, I saw your video where you were going and inspecting some of your colonies, and you're getting a lot of brood down there. Bruce has got some videos of what beekeeping's like down in Alabama. Not only do they have a great football team, but they've got some good bees down there too. I appreciate your support, Bruce. Hey, Dwayne, thanks for coming to the conference. It was one of the highlights of my life for sure. That was such a blast. I learned a lot from it. A lot of people think that, I don't learn anything from those. I'm just putting on to help other people. And that's not the case. I'm telling you what, I learned a lot from that conference, and a lot of questions are in my mind, and I got to try some new things out. It's always learning. That's the exciting part of life. I think that's when you're a kid, things are a lot cooler, but you're constantly learning new things about the world. As an adult, we shouldn't get away from that. Obviously, we have more responsibilities, so we can't spend as much time doing those things. But, it's still my favorite thing is just learning new stuff. Arctic Blast. All right. Have you ever done a merger like Ian does with an excluder and a queen in the bottom box and a weaker colony above with the queen? I have done similar things to that. Typically, if I do a merger and it's a queen problem, the queen's no good, then I will just kill the queen, and then I will just honestly shake the bees out in front of a hive, and the nurse bees will go in, and the forager bees will just have to figure it out. And that, so they might go to multiple hives. Now, if it has a disease or something like that, or viruses, then I'll drop a heavy dose of formic acid, and that'll nuke everything. And they'll abscond, and whether they drift into other colonies, I don't think that they do, but I don't know. Yeah, roll tide. I'm telling you, it's been a good year for Alabama fans. Yeah, Don Bearden said it just right. You can always learn unless you know it all. That's so true. So Adam's like, why feed pollen sub in the spring when I had pollen frames in the fall? Well, Adam, you don't necessarily have to feed. If you have a good buildup, and you have some bee bread in there, and you have plenty of pollen coming in, you don't have any crazy weather to interrupt that, and there's variables. Usually the nice big prime colonies typically don't need a lot of inputs unless the weather's just really atrocious. It's the little colonies that really benefit the most from it. Also, as a business, I need to throw a little bit a little bit of those patties in there to make sure that I'm smoothing out the gaps, because every few years we do get those really hard freezes that come in and just completely ruin a week or two of good foraging on pollens, and it sets the bees back, and that can really affect the bottom line. And so I look at it like this: if I buy in bulk, I'm spending $1 something, low, just a little over $1 a pound for a patty. It's worth it to feed a few of those things. Even if I spend $5, I mean, honey it doesn't take much honey to make $5, especially selling it the way that I do. I don't, sell it in drums. So you don't have to do that. For years, I didn't feed pollen patties, but it definitely makes things more uniform. It takes some of the nature's, learning curves, and, just it takes some of the variables out of it. And that's, as a business, we've got to try to do that. All right. I know I missed some stuff. Hey, Troy, thanks so much for the $20 donation. We really appreciate that. Leave a comment or a question if you have one. We really appreciate that. And thanks, Larry, for coming on as well. Oh, hey, I'm so excited about doing that collaboration with Bob Benny too. Because, I do something, and then I'm thinking in the back of my mind, okay, maybe I'm doing something wrong. You've goofed up before, Kamon. This won't be the last time. So did you do this right? And so to have someone of Bob Benny's caliber and experience to bounce ideas off of, and also see what he's seen, I love it when those guys are like, yeah, that's what I saw too. I'm just like, that makes me feel really good. It just makes me wonder if I'm ever going to get away from that feeling. I don't think I am, though. I think I'm always going to be second guessing myself. We tend to put other people on higher pedestals sometimes than we should, but Bob is one of those few people that really, he is that good. Bob's awesome. He's a good guy too. All right. But thanks for those donations. I'm going to talk about the experimental yard really quick. Just some updates. I think I might have mentioned this in the last one. We just got a sponsor from Premier Foundation. I'm really excited to do videos on them, because when I heard about it, I'm like, okay, another foundation company. Whoop-de-doo. We've already got Acorn, Peerco, Right Cell, Plasticell, or there's like 4 or 5 other types out there. And so what makes this special? It's already a pretty full industry. Well, these have more cells per foundation than any of the other brands out there. Over Man Lakes, it's like 9 point something percent more because the cell walls are thinner. They use a different process to make the plastic foundation. They're not using injection molding. So they are able to get it more towards the natural cell wall size so they can fit more of them in there. And that's huge. In a 10 frame box at 9% difference, we're talking like almost 6,000 cells. In a double deep, 12,000. Now, some of the other brands, it's not quite as big, but it's still like 7 to 9%. So that's a big difference. And they only use wax from USA made beekeepers. So I'm interested to get those. I appreciate them funding all of the foundation for experimental yard. So maybe give a Premier Foundation a check if you're needing foundations this year. I think that they might be the best on the market. We're going to find out in our experimental yard. All right, Americans Bee. Thank you so much for the donation. Very, very much. Kamon, my only first hive swarm died out from varroa likely. I have a 4-frame nuke coming in spring, but I ordered a bee weaver queen last fall that I plan on replacing my queen with. Ideas. Thank you. All right. Well, I don't know what time it's coming. I imagine it's going to be sometime this spring. So, I mean, if you're getting a 4-frame nucleus colony, and it's roughly around the same time where the queen's coming before, that's kind of a little bit of a conundrum. Well, one, you can always get another hive, I guess. You could split those in half, but the problem is it really doesn't get you anywhere fast. Having a 4-frame split with 2 queens really doesn't get you much speed. Once they both finally get up to around 8 frames of bees, then you're going to start really seeing some headway. I don't know if maybe it'd be better to cancel that order or something like that on that queen, or maybe you just requeen that or sell it to somebody else. Honestly, I don't know 100%. It's not a really good situation to be in. I have been in that situation before years ago. But leave a comment below if you've kind of got more insight on that, what you're kind of thinking. UK. We have got a lot of people from the UK on here today. That's awesome. Did the Apame pollen traps / bottom boards come in, Josh Hager? They have not. I've talked to Korhan, and he's supposed to be sending me out some pretty soon. They've been really busy. I'm going to get those in the near future, and I'm going to do some videos on those, but I have not been able to get any of those in. I definitely want to talk about that product more because I think it's one of the coolest on the market for the price. It's hot. Thank you, Laurel. All right, I got some tea and honey. All right. What's your thoughts on black queen cell virus looking to do some grafting this summer? I have only seen it one time in my cells. And basically when I saw that, the colony that I was grafting from, and I kind of gave it a good look over, and I sanitized all of my equipment, and just the starter that I was using to start everything in, the nurse bees that were raising those queens, I just left a queen cell in there and started a whole new starter. So I don't know if that's the best way to deal with it. It probably isn't. But basically, when I saw that, I just totally just started afresh, made a new starter, and just changed the whole process, and it cleaned it up. So I don't know a whole lot about that virus, but I just try to keep things clean. And really, over the years, and I was only one cell. The rest of the cells in that group looked really good. So I don't know exactly all there is to know about black queen cell virus. Definitely not an expert in that regard, but it hasn't been a big issue for me at all. Gone Wild Kennels, do you have to have beehives in the area to set out swarm boxes? Alberta, Canada. All right. So you don't have to. It's better if you do. The more beekeepers in the area, the better chance, obviously, because beekeepers, commercial and hobby beekeepers, send out swarms. And I try not to send out very many, but I probably sent out half a dozen last year that I know of. And there's probably a handful more, maybe double that I sent out that I don't know of. But we did a pretty good job on swarm control last year. I really felt like we didn't lose many, and I was able to capture some of those. Probably about, I think, 3 of them I caught. But it does help having beekeepers around. The guys that I know that catch literally 50, 60 swarms and swarm traps a year, they're living in areas where there's just a lot of commercial beekeepers or a lot of hobby beekeepers. And no offense to hobby beekeepers, but I was one too at one point, and sometimes I still act like one. We're bad about sending swarms off, and so if you don't have those in your area, you can still catch them as long as obviously there's wild bees. And there's more out there than we think that they are, but it doesn't mean they're always great. I'd say out of 4 swarms that I catch, only one of them is really a huge true champ, and then there's usually 1 or 2 that are kind of, oh, those are pretty nice, and then there's usually 1 out of those that's just absolute garbage and they're almost not worth the time. But that's just bees for you. Let's see. Americans bee. I was thinking best solution would be to try to buy a queenless nuke. Seems like a no-brainer. You totally could do that if you're willing to buy those and then use the queen for that. That could work. You'll just have to get the timing down pretty good, because you definitely don't want to get a queenless nuke and then it be a week or 2 before that queen gets in there. You want to get that queen in there as soon as possible. You don't want to let those bees get old. Old bees don't accept queens very good. But yeah, that is a possibility. Kamon, earlier someone mentioned in your video on the Kloss Hive Dome. It really interested me. I have not seen anyone on YouTube that has reviewed this product. What happened this winter with it? Well, it's still winter here. Right now it is freezing, and it's going to drop down in the 20s, and it's supposed to get in the teens over the next few days. Now, I just checked that hive the other day when we got up into the mid 50s, and they were alive. They were doing great. I wasn't seeing any condensation issues, except right where it touches the box. You got that dome, and right where it sits on that box, there was moisture right up underneath there. So if you didn't have that sealed really good, it probably would rot your box. But it's doing what it's supposed to do as far as what I can see so far, and the moisture is going to the outer edges and dropping down. However, keep in mind, none of my hives pretty much have any upper entrances or anything, and they are sealed with either just the lid and the bees propolizing around that, or using kind of a foamy like Ian uses, or when I call the Reflectix double bubble, same product pretty much. And so I don't have an upper entrance. That works really good for me. Is there a tiny bit of condensation up there? It's so little it doesn't matter. But I do see a little bit of water on the bottom boards where it's rolling down the side. I think condensation for me is only an issue when the colonies are really weak. Big clusters have enough heat being generated. They're pushing with that heat, that moisture, to the sidewalls where it's supposed to go. It's your little clusters that are like 2 and 3 frames in size that struggle, I think, the most. And again, I have not used upper entrances in many, many years, and I don't see any reason to start. But I live in a very mild winter. Keep that in mind. All right. Bob Benny was talking about pollens and, bee breads, and this is something that is a fascinating topic. Fresh pollen is definitely the best. Fresh nectar is definitely the best. And Bob was talking at our conference, and he's talked about this on YouTube, about how pollens, they just don't last long. They don't have a long shelf life. And I think that might be why sometimes the bees just don't build up that good. I mean, I don't really see bees building up super good off of bee breads, because I do have some in my hives. I see them start building at a rapid rate when that fresh pollen comes in. I can feed pollen patties. I used to start feeding them like January 1st. Hardly saw any difference, and it wasn't worth the money. They just didn't want to eat them and actually turn that into brood. When I started waiting like I am now till right before the maples or right during the maple pollen, the first pollens of the year, it's different. They eat those pollen patties up, and they love them, and they really turn it into something. So I think they're super limited. All right. Hey, Dandridge, Tennessee. All right. My wife used to make good Dandridge, Tennessee honey. It's a great spot for bees, I think. So Bo Lash says in Georgia, lost 5 out of 7 hives. 2 that survived were on solid bottom boards. So the screen bottom boards died out. Plenty of food around them. Any thoughts? I personally don't think that it has something to do with the bottom boards. That's just my personal opinion. But I have some screen bottom boards here, and I have some that are without. I do prefer solid bottom boards. Don't get me wrong. Or screen bottom boards that can be closed up pretty good. I don't like getting a lot of drafts in and out of the colony during winter. But honestly, when it comes to condensation, when it comes to ventilation, when it comes to all of those things, I feel like those are not even secondary. They're way down on the list of wintering success, especially in the South. I think the cluster size is very important. They've got to have plenty of food. You mentioned they have food. I really feel like mites is a big problem. And there can be other things that affect the bees. If the mites kind of brought their immune system down, there could be a little bit of viruses, and maybe that's not enough right there. But weak bees also are more susceptible to things like nosema and tracheal mites and other things. So there's multiple factors, but typically my strategy for success is low mite counts, plenty of nutrition. And as far as worrying about winter that much, I don't. I just worry about getting big, healthy clusters going into winter. So maybe those 2 didn't have as high of a mite count. Maybe there was something else, but you got to have those winter bees. You've got to have a big population that raises those winter bees, and those winter bees, they're not raised in brood. So there's that short little window where you've got to get those winter bees going, and definitely in the South, some bees are really bad about trying to brood really hard in months that they shouldn't. So that's again why I've kind of gone to carnies, but probably a mite problem. I have a friend down the road in my hometown, and he lost 5 out of 5, but he didn't do anything for mite control. And I'm pretty sure that's why. The more I focused on mites and nutrition and keeping good queens in my hives, man, things have just totally changed. I really feel for you guys, though. I have totally gone through losing 5 out of 7 hives and many years of that. So I have totally done that. Don't feel like you're the only one, because you are not. Let's see here. What happened to the lift that you were going to get? I do have it. I have not used it hardly at all, just because I've been really busy. Like right now, we're trying to get some better videos up, but also I'm grinding and epoxying our extraction room floor and painting the walls and doing different things and prepping some stuff. I've got an 850 gallon pound bottling tank that I'm putting in and trying to rig up all that. So just a lot of winter work going on, prepping some more pallets for spring, a lot of winter work. And it's been pretty cold around here. And so, there hasn't been a really good reason to move my bees yet, but I definitely will be moving bees in March for sure. So be on the lookout for that lift. All right. I have a double brood and 3 queens coming in April. Going to put brood and fruit and 3 5-frame nukes. How long should I make the nukes queenless before putting in the queen? Thank you for your videos. I like putting them in the same day. Now, what I prefer to do, if I have the time, is that, like, we make our splits and they're queenless and ready to go. You can pop the queen in right there. I like to leave the cork in the cage. I'm not in any rush, especially if they're good, queens that, I definitely want to make sure that they work out for me. I'm just not in any rush. I put those queens in there with the cork in. Don't let them get to the candy. Let them get used to her pheromones and just put them in the same day. Because if you don't put them in the same day, they have a really strong tendency, and they will start raising their own queen cells. And even if they accept your queen after you introduce it maybe a day or 2 later, they'll continue to raise those queen cells. Mated queens and laying queens are not good about going around and tearing, stinging or tearing down cells, and bees sometimes won't tear them down even if they have a laying queen. They'll just raise them anyways. Maybe they like what they're doing better. For whatever reason, they'll raise them. And then within a handful of days, you're going to have a virgin emerge out of that cell, and she's going to go around and kill a queen. Virgins are extremely good at killing mated queens. So definitely, I like to introduce that queen the first day. But you can leave the candy out, and a lot of times that works pretty good. But I like to go ahead and leave that cork in. I'll come back 2 days later and then pull the cork out. It just gives them a couple more days to get used to that queen. And then I want to come back probably, the next week, not 7 days later, but probably 10 days later or so, and just see the eggs. And, these inspections can be so quick, and you're not getting there and tearing through every frame. Just pull the other frames apart, carefully pull out a center frame, see if there's eggs. If there is, drop it down, put it back together. Make sure they have food. Splits, even if it's in the prime part of the year, they don't always have the forager population to really bring in what they need. So a tiny bit of feed can really help them out until those nurse bees in there graduate to foraging age. All right. So one of the things about the experimental yard, listening to some of Randy Oliver's stuff, it's been really interesting to see his take on a lot of the treatments that are out there. His take on the thermal treatment, which I didn't get around to doing this last year and was disappointed that I did not, was that it was not working very good in the range that he was doing it in. So that's a bummer, but also makes me think with the formic acid and the oxalic acid dribble and the thymol, how good are those going to work for me? Is it going to take multiple treatments? Are we going to get close to 90% kill? I don't know. I feel like I'm going to get 70s and 80s more than I would like. I'm most optimistic about the oxalic acid coupled with the brood breaks. Now, I hope I'm right. I'm hoping those brood breaks coupled with the treatment bring the perfect dynamic of a biological tool and a physical, treatment. And between the two of those kind of aligning together, you get those 90-95% drops consistently. I would love to see that. I'm really hoping that's what we're going to see. And it's worth the work if you can actually get that, and oh yeah, I'm going to get that every time, but we don't know that. So I'm hoping that's what we can get out of that. So I can get a winter harvest. Okay, let's see. Looking at 4 hives or not. Any thoughts on the new Formic Pro strips? Looks like Apivar might be hard to come by in my area this spring. Well, and more and more people are turning away from Apivar because it's not concentrated enough. The amitraz in it is just not dropping mites back like it should be. I don't think it's, again, immunity. I think it has more to do with the quality control with the strips. So you might be better off. The Formic Pro, I've never used it in a treatment. I will be this year. I'm going to go ahead and do Formic and just see if we can make that work on our summers anyways. And I'm going to use that with the wooden hive section of the test yard because that's typically what we all use. And so I don't want to use an insulated hive and, do something that can make the results skewed a little bit. But I really don't have a lot of experience with Formic. Formic, you have to be really careful with. What little experience I do have are all with Mite Away quick strips, the number 2. And they're rough on the bees if you're not careful. Very rough on the bees. Will you be doing any videos this summer with Kaylee from the Honeystate? I don't really know Kaylee, and we haven't talked about doing anything. I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to it. I just have a lot of people that, I've already got some things planned and lined up with, and I'm having a hard time making sure that I get those things done. But I am pretty excited. I'm going to have my friend Zach in Hawaii do a live chat with me, kind of like what I did with Ian. And I think that's going to be really interesting. He's my age, but he's got a totally different background on how he started. And I'm sure he's got plenty of jokes on yours truly, because he knows some of the mistakes that I've made. Now I know some of the mistakes he's made too, so it'll be fun. It'll be a lot of fun. What do you think of Russian honeybees? Well, they're pretty busy, but seriously, I've purchased some in the past, and they did pretty good, but they're very different. They're like carnies on steroids, as far as they're extremely sensitive to dearth periods. They just stop, and they're very sensitive to pollen flows, and they really hit it hard, and they shrink back, quite a bit. They can be more aggressive sometimes, but not always. I haven't kept hundreds of Russian hives, and much of what I know is from beekeepers I know that really keep them on a consistent basis, and they can be good bees, but they're definitely more sensitive to certain things, which can be an advantage. So I don't think they're a bad bee. I just think that you've got to manage them if you're used to Italians and you go to Russians, it's a very different experience. And don't be getting like those Russian hybrids you see in these packages. Those aren't Russians. Personally, the only Russians that I consider, good Russian, like the Russians are more like what the Russian USDA type program, that kind of stuff. But some of them do tend to be mean. And my buddy that runs a lot of them, his bees are a lot rougher than mine. I like very gentle bees. I'm a wimp. Let's see here. I want to make your 3-way nuke from a deep. When are they strong enough? Should I place another 3-way on top or migrate to a regular 10-frame brood box? Concerned about keeping the dividers aligned. So Sinister Hippo, how I do mine, as you've probably seen in the videos, I have 3 slots. So if I choose to, I can just take 2 of them out and then put one in the very center slot. Now I have 2 5-frame nukes side by side. If you could make it, if you got really detailed in how you made your boxes, to where you could add another story to that. It'd be complicated, and I haven't fooled around with it. Hang on one second. Kids are obviously having fun in the other room. I don't know if you all can hear it, but I certainly can. But yeah, I mean, as far as those nukes go, they can really plug out fast in spring. Lots of nectar and pollen coming in. That is one of the reasons why I love 3-frame mating nukes over 2, because the 2-framers, they just plug out so much faster. My friend Zach, who's in Hawaii, raises all those queens. He has is starting to switch to 3s, because they give you more time than the 2s. And the 3s plug out fairly quickly as well. So you just got to stay on top of it. You have schedules when you're raising queens, like he does and like I do, and you've got to stick to them. And the colonies that get strong, you pull bees out of. But at a certain point, though, if you're not selling queens, they grow out of them pretty quick. So once they get to the point where they've got at least a 1.5 frames of good brood in those things, if you're not planning on pulling them back or taking the queen out, you've got to get them into a 5-frame nuke at that point. They grow out of them really quick. So if you're using them just to expand your operation, you'd be better just to make your splits and putting a queen into a 5-frame nuke out of the gate. But as a queen rearing operation, you just kind of keep them cut back at that size, and you'll always have, out of 300, you might have 60, 70, maybe it's a bad take, and you have 100 queens that didn't come back, and those obviously are going to shrink down. And then you have 200 that did come back, and those are going to build up, and you just kind of find the ones that are really big, and you just kind of cross them over. So that's just kind of how we do it. It takes a little bit of doing it. It's hard to explain. Hey, Kamon, thanks for taking the time to chat. If you get a Bee Culture magazine, you've probably seen some results published about the efficacy of Apistan. I've never used it nor talked to anyone who has experienced thoughts or opinions. I have never used Apistan. About the time I got into starting to treat my hives, it had already been fairly clear that it wasn't a good treatment to use, and because the mites had built up immunity to it. And Apistan is mm, it's the Kumafos, if I remember, and then it's the Checkmite that's fluvalinate, or do I have those backwards? One of those two. Anyways, both of those are really bad about building up and absorbing into the wax. So the longer you use, the more toxicity you get into the hive. So I never have used it. I have not seen that article. Was it in a recent Bee Culture magazine? Because I actually did just get my first one in many, many years in January. Roll Tide from Chicago. All right. Any experience with the Carpathian Ukraine bees? No. Oh no, I don't think we have anything like that over here in the United States. I would love to see those bees, though. Absolutely would love to. Maybe one of these days I can go over there and get some videos on those things. But no, no experience and no knowledge about Carpathian bees at all. So Wee's Bees Apiary said, from what I have seen so far, your Oxalic idea is right on. Are you talking about brood breaks and using the treatment, or about it not working with 5 rounds in 21 days? Because that has not worked for me. Checkmite is Kumafos. Okay, thank you. So that would mean the Apistan is the fluvalinate. But yeah, both of those were really bad about toxicity. And that's one of the reasons the mites built up some immunity to them and resistance, is because low levels were building up into the combs. And so the mites were exposed to them literally all the time. And that's why I believe Amitraz has been able to be used so long in the form of Apivar, is because it oxidizes really fast and does not build up. You don't have Amitraz actually in your wax. Now you can have some other chemicals maybe that have built up off of that. I don't know. But as far as the Amitraz, it's supposed to break down really fast. All right. Yesterday, one of my hives had 30 to 40 dead bees piled near the front corner. Most had their guts chewed out. Could this be the work of mites? The other 3 hives next to them had 5 to 10 dead bees. I've never been able to visibly see the mites do any damage with the naked eye on the bees, so probably not. It could be something else. There is some, bugs and stuff like that will eat on bees, and they don't get into hives because the bees will kick their butts if they do. But when the bees throw them out, maybe they'll come on and get onto them at night and eat on them or something. Mice chew up bees pretty good too. Losing some bees during the winter, losing a handful here and there like that might not be a problem at all, especially if you're in an area where your bees are brooding. Once those winter bees start rearing brood, the biological time clock accelerates at an extreme rate, and they've got to get that round of brood successfully reared, and it's got to emerge and replace them, because once they start committing to raising brood, they die pretty quickly. So, if we put out sheets in front of our hives this time of the year, I'd say I'd start seeing more drop than I had in the last month or two. Kamon, any advice on queen grafting for a noob? Do it. If you can, go to a place, some clubs, if they do stuff, you can get some hands-on experience for free or a very inexpensive amount. We're planning, and this year, I mean it, we're actually going to have some classes on how to do that. There are other people that do as well. So that's helpful if you can go to some of those, but just do it. The grafting isn't as hard as what a lot of people think. If you have the starter set up with tons of nurse bees and you have plenty of nutrition and they're ready to raise queens and they're completely queenless and they can't raise their own, even if you do just a halfway decent job of grafting, most people do after just an attempt or two, you'll get some queens out of it. It's not, the grafting usually isn't the part where people mess up. They think that it is because, like, well, it must have been my poor grafting. But a lot of times it's in the second stage of getting it into that starter, and the bees are not strong enough or don't have enough nutrition to handle it. Those 5-frame systems videos that I've done, they work pretty good. I mean, if you do them right and you pack the bees and they're good, you can raise dozens and dozens of cells. But you can watch those videos. Dr. Larry Connor, his books also address that other people have videos on it as well. But I like keeping it simple. You can raise great queens with a 5-frame nuke. Very, very good queens. But it all has to do with quality. And grafting is just like riding a bicycle. Practice beforehand. If you're wanting the queens at a certain date, get in there beforehand and start grafting some larvae. Even if they're too big, just drop them into some cups. Practice hand-eye coordination, playing the mandolin, the motor skills, teaching your hand to do that. That's the most important part of the grafting process. My wife is more naturally gifted when it comes to that, though. I don't know why. Maybe she's done more things. I know she sews and stuff really good, and she does a lot of other things as well. So maybe that's helped her. But she's really good at just picking them up. Really ticks me off sometimes. Jeremy, I mean, you can treat with oxalic acid and dandridge anytime that you want to. Basically, you could treat it when it's supposed to get up in the 50s here. I mean, you could totally do it. However, if they're rearing brood, then a lot of the mites are going to be in that brood. It's better than not doing it, though. Yeah, Megan says, I think I killed a few hives with diatomaceous earth this year. You might have damaged them. If they can get down into it, diatomaceous earth really hurts the colony. But unless they're all falling down into it a bunch, something else could have definitely done the job. Varroa mites could have done it, and they drop down in there. But you definitely, if you use diatomaceous earth, you need to make sure that it's in an area that the bees can't get into it and wallow into it. If they get just a tiny bit on them, just the tiniest bit, it really doesn't bother them that much. But if they fall into a spot of it, they're toast. Let's see. All right, so Lucas is talking about the Apistan results from France and Spain. So I'm suspecting Apistan may have just been approved if they're getting 95% kill like they're reporting. It very well could be that it's just now been legalized over there. I don't know. But that is a high kill. I'm definitely not planning on using it just because of the toxicity buildup. I really try to keep things clean. So Wheeze Bees thinks that the algae patties helped a lot with the mites. It's pricey, but really seemed to keep my mites down. Your thoughts? I didn't use it enough, and I hate being like the guy like, oh man, everyone needs to try this out because it worked. Because I didn't do enough testing for that. I can tell you that my bees look good in those colonies, but as far as mite resistance or anything like that, or even mite elimination, I don't know. That would be an awesome thing to experiment in the future with the experimental yard. Maybe we can talk to healthy bees and they can work with us on seeing if it does control the mites a good bit. I use pollen patties, though, to boost brood. And I felt like my only issue with it is it smelled so strong that I wasn't getting as much of a boost as I would out of an Ultra Bee patty because it was blocking some of the pheromones. I don't know. And I used it literally on half a dozen hives total. So take that for what you will. It wasn't much. And I definitely didn't do any alcohol washes or anything on those colonies in relation to the mites, but it could be. They say that it's supposed to help, but, a lot of people say stuff. I say stuff. My wife, she doesn't always listen to me. Let's see here. So Sherry just asked about the queens coming back after grafting. So let's say that I've got my starter 5-frame nuke box and I've done a good job and I grafted in there 45 cells. Now out of that, I don't expect to get all of those. Let's say they only accept 20 and then I have 20 cells. Now, one thing that guys from all levels will tell you that the longer you leave those cells in there, you'll lose a few of them. Because for whatever reason, the bees feel like, oh, we don't need that many. I don't know why. Nobody does. But, they have 20 of the most perfect looking cells. And by the time you need to pull those out, they've taken a few of those away. That's why we use incubators. So we can just pull them out and put them in there. But as far as what was Sherry Molina was talking about, you can't leave them all in that nuke. because the first one that comes out, the first thing she does, get a drink of honey, get a little bit of energy, and then she goes finds those other cells and queens and kills them. So you'll end up with one queen. So what we have to do is we graft. By day 10, they're out of there and they're in individual nucleus colonies. And then within a couple of days, they're out of there. And then they're going to be going on their mating flights in that hive without any other queens or queen cells in there. All right. What are your thoughts on some of the cheaper oxalic acid vaporizers found on Amazon? Well, it depends on which one. I wouldn't go for the cheapest of the cheapest, but there are some that are in the $60 to $90 range that are pretty good vaporizers. I've seen some people use them. I have not used them personally myself, but they're pan vaporizers and they work, but they're slow. That's why, and like in my videos and stuff, I pretty much have only done videos on the fast models that use, you know, the little unit that looks like a gun, and you know it just treats so much faster. But you can use those cheaper models. Oxavap makes a model that's a pan vaporizer, and I think the prices have gone down on them. And that, from my understanding, they're built to last a lifetime. They're really tough. The Oxavap has some of those pan vaporizers for a pretty good price. Maybe comparable to Amazon. Shoot, they might even be the one on Amazon for all I know. Yeah, per Randy Oliver, Dawn soap wash is just as good as a 90% alcohol wash. Thoughts? I haven't tried it myself, and I do really like Randy Oliver's work. I think what he's doing is very important for this industry. It's encouraged me to do this test yard. So, when I say this, don't think that I'm knocking on Randy Oliver, but he's not always right. And that's not always his fault. It's just he's doing so many things, and some of the information that he gleans, like the whole 5 rounds of oxalic acid in 21 days, he didn't really test that out himself. He was getting that from a scientist, and just resharing the information on what the data that they found. And from what I understand, Randy didn't even do that test himself. I have not found that test to work for me. Other professionals haven't found that out. So you have to be careful with some of the information, but I haven't tested it out. I think that worked pretty good. Personally, I haven't tried it. Soapy water kills bees fast. It can be organic soap and it'll kill them just in a heartbeat. So I would like to try that out this year. Maybe we can do that. But I still use the concentrated alcohol. That's what I'm used to. Will you explain further details on the brood break you do when doing splits? When do you time your oxalic acid treatment? How many days after the split do you treat with oxalic acid? Woo! Okay. This is hard to explain, but I'm going to try to do it quick. So what we'd like to do is go to a good, healthy colony, and we want to pull all of the capped brood out. That's going to be the split. The original colony keeps all the exposed larvae. So in the original colony, they also keep the queen. So there's no brood in that original colony now. Capped brood, sorry. There's no capped brood. There's young larvae, and that's fine. But what we've done is now we've created a full exposure in this colony. So treat that colony immediately. Day after you do the split, do it that night even. Oxalic acid vapor, kill those mites. I personally would treat them again later just for good measure. I always like to do it twice with oxalic acid vapor. It's a soft treatment. Then on the split, you've got all this capped brood, but you don't have a queen. Now, if you drop a queen cell in there, then we're going to come back in about 14 days. It needs to be a very ripe one, so the queen's going to emerge out of that cell within, 2 days, and then she's going to go on her mating flight. So no earlier than 14 days from dropping that, we're going to come back, and we are going to see if she's laying. And she came back, and hopefully she does. Because when the queen lays, it takes several days before that brood gets capped. I cannot remember. I'm wanting to say it's day 9 that they cap the worker brood larvae. So that you got a big window there on that split. Now, if you So, probably we're looking at day 18 to day 21. But if you go in there 14 days later and you see a young queen laying, once the queen has started laying good and they've committed to feeding those larvae and they've got some good pheromones going, they're pretty locked in. Give them a shot of oxalic acid vapor. I would come back again a week later, hit them again. I mean, get it while the getting's good. Even if they got a little bit of capped brood at that point, just go ahead and do it. If you can get those 90% kills, it's just so worth it. Now, if you have a mated queen, it changes the timing quite a bit. You've made that split capped brood, so you still got a little bit of a window in there. You can break down the math, and you can get those timings. And if I do 40 splits like that at a time, so all of it aligns with one another, works good. How did Laurel enjoy Hawaii? She loved it. It was good. It was a great time. Laurel had a blast. She really needed a break. The only thing that could have made it more relaxing for her is for me to have not been there, because I have a tendency to do bee stuff no matter where I go. No, we had a great time. I was just joking. Should I be scared of inexpensive hive kits that come from China? I would be. But I would definitely be concerned about anything like that from China. But you might find something that's halfway decent. But I tell you, if you can find some Amish or Mennonite folks to do it for you, that's a great way to do it. Down in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, and in Franklin, Kentucky, there's some really good cypress equipment for a great fair price, and you can get it there. It's fantastic. I'm going to be selling some equipment before too long. It's going to be at a really low price. It's not going to be wax dipped, but it is going to be assembled and ready to go. And I'm going to probably I've got to get some of this equipment out of here, and I'm going to sell it at a rock bottom price to get it going. So keep an eye out for that. I'll be announcing that on Facebook and YouTube whenever that happens. It'll go quick. All right. Don Bearden says, Kamon, please answer James Burton. Okay, where was that? Is it actually cheaper in the long run to build my hives out of CDX plywood, or better to buy unassembled hive boxes and supers? It would be better to buy solid wooden hives. And I wish I could recommend Man Lake stuff, but I really recommend not buying their stuff. Right now, their boxes are pretty they're garbage. They're trashy, and maybe they'll fix that. If you better be the stuff that I saw from them this year, a couple guys showed me some of their stuff. If they're all like that, Better Be's got some nice stuff, and Dayton's better than Man Lake when it comes to that kind of thing. Again, if you can find some Amish. A lot of times that stuff's really good, or a local guy. But the problem with CDX plywood boxes is you can make them. And like my lids are CDX, but you've got to seal them really well. Advantech has gone downhill. Everyone's trying to cheapen things up, and wood quality across the board has gone down. Prices have gone through the roof. Gotta love it. It's just wonderful how our government loves to mismanage this country. Anyways, so that being said, the CDX, you've got to seal really good, and they work good for nukes and swarm traps, but you're going to get more life out of solid boxes. And paint them, prime them and paint them really good, seal everything, and they'll last a really long time for you. The CDX can work though, but if you're looking at a long-term, deep boxes and stuff like that, I wouldn't do it. I like them as lids though. Again, I can wax dip, and that is awesome. Yeah. We appreciate the donation, Merry Christmas 2.0. They've got a lot of wonderful gifts that they've given us in the forms of pests over here, too, that have invasive species and all that kind of stuff. Do you mark queens before they return from a mating flight? David, I have done that. I don't like to do it, though. I feel like I like to wait till after they've started mating. And I'm not saying that I've seen that there's been any negative results. I've had some where I've marked them and they've gone on the mating flight and come back. But I don't like getting in there. I don't like also fooling with virgins. That whole process, I feel like the more hands off I am about the whole thing, the better. Drop that ripe queen cell in there. Let her emerge in the darkness. Don't disturb her. Don't get in there until she's come back and she should be laying. That's my approach. And I get better percentages when I do that. Just make sure I've got to make sure that those queen cells are in good shape. Drop them in a healthy nuke, and then just pray that nothing eats them and the weather's good. And that's the best I know how to do. But I don't like marking them beforehand for multiple reasons. But I have done it, and it has worked a couple times. Kamon, is it possible to use a 3-frame as a starter if you only want 10 queens or so? It may be possible and probably is, but as far as starting them, absolutely. If it's a pack 3 frames and it's all young bees with putting nutrition, they'd start 10 queen cells, no problem. Now, finishing them is another story. And I hope to touch on this a little bit this year in videos, but I really don't have any experience doing anything smaller than a 5-frame nuke box. I don't know anything, Nate, about Glory Bees bee supply company. Just I've never done any business with them. Haven't ever heard anything bad though. So there's that. I will be selling some nukes, Darren. I haven't put the list out there. I'm not going to be selling as many. I'm going to focus on queens more this year. And so I'm going to need those nukes to make up mating nukes. I'm going to make several hundred of them up. Any thoughts of popular for hive bodies? Hey, especially if it's slow grown, tulip poplar. Oh, I love it. Make sure it's dried out good so it doesn't shrink on you while you're working with it or after you've done stuff with it. But I have some poplar equipment, not much, but it's great. Again, if you seal it good, it'll last a long time, way more than these pine boxes and stuff like that. Just seal it good. Poplar is great. I would love to see more poplar equipment out there. And it's good because it's strong and it's lightweight. Uh-oh, we got an Auburn fan on here. Uh-oh. That's all right. We got another national championship. You guys can celebrate with us. Maybe. All right, so any progress on the horizontal hive you received from Ricky Rourke? Well, we're still in a very cold time of the year. February is always pretty rough. So actually our worst weather is typically in February. So, right now, not doing a whole lot with the bees. Just occasionally, getting in there, throwing some patties in. I need to talk about that here in a second, about getting in there in cool weather. I got a lot of negative feedback from that video. I got a lot positive too, but, people saying I'm going to kill my bees and stuff. But I haven't done anything with the horizontal hive. Haven't really done a whole lot with the experimental yard, just preparation. And once we start, we're going to be on that in March, and it's going to really start going. And as far as the horizontal hive, just what my plans for, I don't want to wait a whole year. We are going to just find a really good colony that's building up like a champ. In March, we'll be able to tell, and we're just going to plug that over into it. So we're really going to get to see a lot from it this year. But March, things are really going to start picking up. Brian Reese, dude, I got to send you some honey or something like that. Sign me up for the class. Take my money. Also, loved your wax boxes. Great deal from the conference. Thanks once again. Hey, Brian, thanks so much, man. You've just been, I don't know how much you've donated, but guys like you have really helped make this experimental yard possible. When I first started talking about it, I was really just like, we'll see if that can happen. I started punching the numbers. I'm like, wow, that's a lot. And I'm not sure that we're going to be able to do that in the next couple of years. And, because of people like you, we're going to be able to do it, and with style. So thank you so much. I'm glad you like those boxes, and it was good meeting you. Also, I'll let you know if, when that class is, and dude, you've already paid for yours as far as I'm concerned. I appreciate you very much. All right. So, hey, thanks so much, Sepesta62. Really appreciate that donation. Well, I'm trying to help the industry out. It's yet to be determined how helpful I am, but basically, a lot of the stuff that I've learned has just come from people that are much greater than I am at beekeeping. Some of them are dead already, so I can't do any interviews. But as far as I just try to bring the information to light. There's just so much confusion out there, and I've experienced so many years of it. And actually, this YouTube channel has been the best thing for me education wise because it's exposed me, and I've been able to develop relationships with beekeepers that are better than me or have done things that I haven't done. And it's helping me become a better beekeeper. And so I'm loving it. I'm learning so much from this, and I hope that I can help a little bit. Go Vols. Hey, I like to see them do well, but man, that's going to be a ways. Kamon, are you going to sell some Carnolian queens? Actually, that's probably all I'm going to sell. I'm going to try to produce, I would like to produce 800 to 1,000 queens to sell this year. We'll see how many I do. At least 600. But I would like to see upwards of 1,000 queens to sell this year. So, when that happens, you guys just stay tuned on Facebook. Follow me on there. Friend requests. Don't send me friend requests, please, because I won't accept them. Because what happens is when I do, I get to see, every post that you make about breakfast and all this kind of stuff. And people post political stuff. I don't have enough energy to, listen to that kind of stuff. And I just don't want to see all that feedback. Everything that I do on Facebook is 99.9% business, beekeeping wise. So I won't accept friend requests for that reason. But if you follow me, you will see what I post. And if I sell queens on there and I need to move some, you'll see it there. I'll also be posting on YouTube and other places. You'll hear about it. Kamon, do you think going from 2 hives to 20 for a third-year beekeeper is a little over ambitious? If you are intense with your management and, you don't, get lazy and you know what they need to be successful. I mean, you could totally do it. 2 to 20 is possible. If you were going from that's going by 10. Now going from 20 to 200, that would be a little bit more of a stretch. But yeah, I think you could do it, but you're going to have to make sure you take care of those mites. They have the nutrition, and you don't get late on it. It's hard when the bees are behind the 8 ball. It gets hard to fix, especially if you don't know how to address it. But yeah, you could do it. I'm rooting for you if you do. All right. Hey Brian, I'll let you know when I got some queens available, and we'll take care of you. I think probably the first queens won't be available until the 3rd or 4th week of April, though, unless we have a really mild March. I'd like to see myself dropping some queen cells in the last week of March, but it's been cool the last few years. It's just been it's been kind of good in some ways, but not as much for early queens. So, but we're all about quality over quantity. So it might be towards the end of April, but we want to make sure we're not sending out garbage. What's your take on medium supers? Hey, they're great. I actually am just switching it. You guys are going to see a big change this year on a lot of things, but we are restructuring our operation. We're just going 100% mediums for our honey supers. So I've got some old ones. I just purchased some. I just purchased 1,000 medium frames and foundation, and I also had some. I got a bunch of old stuff in my dad's barn. I'm finally getting out, and he's like, "Finally, after all these years, I have space again." Don't worry, I'll fill it up, Dad, if you're watching this. But yeah, mediums are great. And there are beekeepers who just run mediums for everything, and they're lightweight. Bees will do fine in them. People get hung up on all of these things when it comes to what type of box and what type of hive setup, all these, the shape of it, all that stuff. It's silly. Bees will survive good in a tractor tire if it's dry, they get the nutrition they need, they don't have any pest problems, and they have a decent queen. They'll do fine in a tractor tire. And I've seen it happen. That's how I know. And I've seen them in engine blocks. I mean, I've seen them in rotted trees with holes in them, even getting a little bit of moisture in there on them in the wintertime. So, you know, the equipment doesn't matter as much. It matters more. The equipment matters more to the beekeeper than really it does to the bees, more often than not. Yeah, I like the cypress boxes from the Amish Wheeze Bees. I think they're great, especially wax dip. They're awesome, but the Amish boxes are great. It's worth the drive to get them, even if it's a little drive. It's way better than Man Lakes boxes for sure. And people ask me why I talk, go up to Kelly's and I do some of these videos, and they jump on me with both feet. But I like Kelly's. I've been dealing with some of the ladies and gentlemen that work there for my entire 17 years of beekeeping. They're very friendly and personable, but they don't even make boxes or frames there anymore. So that stuff's out of their control, and they're a little frustrated about it too, because they're trying to serve the customer, and it's a pain in the butt when you can't do that. But things have changed. I'm hoping long-term things can get better. Oh, by the way, I didn't talk about that video. So when it comes to feeding patties in cold winter type weather where it's below freezing, you can do it. Get in, you crack that thing, pop the lid, smoke the bees down, throw the patty on, shut it. People think that you're going to kill the colony doing that. Now, maybe if it's dropping down to like -20 or something like that, that could be an issue. So you've got to take it within your area and all that kind of stuff. But, it's not like it's warm inside the hive. If I've got a cluster that's this big and the hive box is this big, do you think that entire airspace is warm? It's not. And if it's a double deep and most of them are in the bottom in the early parts of winter, do you think that top's all warm? It's not. So they're not warming up the entire chamber. They're just warming up the core in that brood. And I was really quick. I mean, you can survive going out at -10 butt naked for a few minutes. It's not going to feel good, but you can do it. And it was only like 30 something. It was like 35 when I did that video. I pulled that brood out, popped them back in. People were like, "Oh, you're killing brood, and you just killed that hive." Crazy stuff like that. Stop listening to that hobby information and watch. I'm not a professional really as compared to a lot of these guys, but I see guys like Ian doing stuff crazier than that. So broaden your mind. Just be careful. Don't get in there. You can chill bees. I've killed brood at 60 degrees because I left it out for like 15 minutes. Killed the larvae. So, just be careful. I'm thinking about doing actually a video a week, like on Wednesdays, like Wednesday being the beginner beekeeping videos. Like, I mean, this is stuff from the most basic information. There's nothing wrong with being new. It's great. It was a great time. I remember it, but I'm thinking about having videos once a week that are just for the basic of the basic information for brand new beekeepers. So I might keep a watch out for that. Hey, Garrett Bee Company, man, I really appreciate you. I hope you're doing good. And thanks for your continued support on our experimental yard. And if you have any questions, you know where to leave them. I say it all the time. There's actually a lot of bees here in Canada. Ian hasn't popped on tonight. Last time we had Michael Palmer come on, and it was the real guy. And I've chatted with him a little bit since then. And Michael Palmer, man, I really hope we can get him at our conference in the future. We just need to get all this coronavirus stuff cleared out of here, and then we can get maybe Michael Palmer to come down. Saint Germain, are you going to keep using the spirulina patties, the algae patties? Maybe. I'm not going to be buying them because it's expensive, and I only can do so many things, and I might experiment with them more in the future. But right now, I'm just focused on the mite controls. I'm trying to do fewer things and do better with them, be more thorough. And I can get the Ultra Bee patties for just phenomenally less. So, that's what I did. I got a pallet of those when I went up to Kelly's. And man, I'm loving it because I don't have to make them, and they're ready to go. The big colonies are getting 2 of those suckers. Mike Rosal, sorry if I pronounced your last name wrong. I really enjoy your videos and have learned a lot. Thank you so much, Mike, for helping us out in the experimental yard. And I just can't wait to get it started. It's going to be going in March, and we're going to set up those 26 Apame hives and those 26 wooden hives. And the cool thing is we've got more things than I thought to show, because I'm really excited to see those 1,000 odd frames of Premier Foundation, how they do, because they say that the bees draw them out quicker than the other companies because they're 30-something% thinner on the cell imprint, which is more natural to what the bees want to build off of. And because it's thinner, they can get up to 9-point-something% more cells in the foundation, which definitely gives your queen more space to lay. It'll be interesting to see how well that works. It's definitely a newer product on the market. Premier Foundations, and we really appreciate their sponsorship. To be a sponsor, folks have had to donate over $1,000 in monetary monies or product for the experimental yard. So we really appreciate Apame, Premier Foundation. Oh goodness, I'm dropping the ball right here. Good Job Bees in Hawaii, and Kevin. I've got his name over here. He's a new one. We'll be talking about him in the future, but we've got several people who've donated over 1,000. Very appreciate. I can't say how much I appreciate that. Whew. Okay. Do you prefer CDX or hardwood plywood for migratory covers in terms of the least warping? Thanks. Hardwood plywood, I have not used it. It might be better. The higher quality of the plywood, I think the better it's going to work. If you can get that stuff like Bob Benny uses, like the MDO and HDO, I think he uses, does he use the medium density overlay, or is it the high density overlay? I can't remember. Anyways, that stuff is really intense. It's extremely expensive, and the way lumber prices are right now, man, I'm sure it's even higher. But do it right the first time, and Bob, he says the last couple decades, so it's worth it. Yeah, Stephen, I'm telling you, it's not all about having hundreds of hives. It's just being successful with what you have, whether that be a handful or whether that be thousands. I got into beekeeping because of a guy who had less than 20 hives and was, about 40 miles down the road. He had an observation hive at a festival, and I saw it, tried the honey out, and bought some from him. And I saw those bees, and I was hooked instantly. I purchased 5 hives 2 months later. My dad thought I was crazy. And he still thinks I am to a degree, but what do you do? HDO. Okay. But that, it really makes a big difference. I mean, like we've got Natalie, who's a 12-year-old beekeeper, Beekeeping Like a Girl channel. I mean, there's young people getting into it. And I think there's a lot of interest with people who are like 20, 30, all those ages. There's my charger. But, they've got to be able to be successful. If they do it for several years and it's just a lot of wasted money, a lot of wasted work, and they never see it, producing honey or doing anything significant, then, they get out of it. I almost did that, actually. There was a couple of years where I hardly had any bees after about 4 years getting into it, because I was just like, I buy bees with my money, and then I have no bees. And I have no honey. And it's not all about making money, but at least I'd like to have live bees in my hives, right? I was trying VSH, I was trying Russians, I was trying all kinds of bees that were supposed to be more hygienic, but that was back in my treatment-free years. And you want to talk about burning through a pile of cash. Yeah. Burn through it. But don't give up. I almost did. And you just got to keep at it. Keep at it. And you'll get it. Hopefully our videos will help. I mean, we've got better information than we've ever had online, in my opinion. I'm with Randy Oliver, Ian Stepler, more people like Michael Palmer getting a little bit more time on the internet, and Bob Benny, who's, I think, a rock star. He doesn't act like one, but he is. And then I try to fill in the gaps there. And there's other guys on YouTube that are great also, that are giving some good information as well. So I'm excited about the future. Hey, Jim Ladd, thank you so much for that $10 donation to the experimental yard and for that interesting little creature. I don't know what that is. Maybe a sick hippo falling out of its chair. You know, I could do that in my chair. I don't think I look like a sick hippo. Yeah, Bob Benny is a rock star. Speaking of rock stars, there's Ian Stepler. He just had a picture of himself on Bee Made, and he was grinning like a fool promoting their honey. Oh, not really a fool. You're awesome. But I still stand by my comment that if they put Sandy on there instead on the thing, it would have sold. It'd sell more honey. But I think you agree with me on that. Everyone knows that Laurel's way better looking than I am. So hope you're doing well up there and you're not freezing your butt off too much, but you probably are. But so Ian, got a question for you. So what time do you typically start seeing your first pollens up there in you're like in Manitoba, Miami, Canada, I guess, area? Yeah. Well, you know, it's just good marketing to have I think it's great marketing to have a woman selling the honey because obviously women know more than guys do. Number one, at least that's what my wife keeps telling me, and also, uh, you know, women do a lot of the buying of honey. Honestly, most of my customers are ladies, and so I just think that's more appealing to the ladies to have another lady selling it. But we like seeing you, Ian. You're all right. You're our buddy. We'll pick on you to the all day long, but we love you. End of April for first pollens. Wow, wow. Okay. So whew, speaking of Bob Benny, again getting kind of back to the queen rearing just a little bit. The 2-day queen cells, super excited about those. We've been chatting back and forth a little bit about that. Excited to see. I wonder what he's going to do if he's going to go with Caucasians for his 2-day cells. I pretty much just raise carnies. I just like them so much better than the Italians. It's not that Italian bees are necessarily evil or anything. They seem to fit my management strategy a whole lot better. And the looking towards the future and potential pests that might come or any other maladies, I just see bees that like carnies that are a little more sensitive to flows and not just burning through resources and trying to raise brood in December and January. I need those brood breaks so I can get control of those mites. I think it's healthy. It's kind of like fasting for us. So that's just my opinion. Weaver bees didn't work. Hey, weavers have a great reputation at chasing people around the bee yard. So if that's what they were supposed to do, maybe they didn't send you a weaver. All jokes aside, some people think that the bee weaver queens are great, but I've tried them and several people I know have tried them. And the only thing that they're consistently good at is stinging people. As far as mite resistance, I have yet to see anybody purchase them and be able to prove that it actually works for somebody besides the company. I was so cold today, thawing waters, -35, -33. Cold day. I still can't feel my fingers, feet, and my face. Well, you obviously you can still type, so that's good. But you don't need to be hurting yourself too bad. We still needed you to make more videos. We got a lot of interest in you taking care of yourself, Ian. So make sure that you do that. Let's see. Brutally hot. And there's been this kind of thing going around for a long time that the meaner the bees are, the better they are at honey production and resistance and so many different things. I've never found that to be the case in my apiaries. I've always found that they're just mean. And sometimes they do produce a lot of honey and stuff like that, but I have bees that are really gentle that'll fill up in a good year 2.5 deep boxes of honey, and they're really gentle. And then I'll have some that'll do that much, and they will just so much as to look at the hive too long, and they'll come after you. So I just don't want to put up with that. I like to keep my bees, my kids in the bee business, and getting stung 200 yards away from the bee yard is not a good way to do that. Yeah. No, nobody likes being stung. I've been stung thousands of times and I've never enjoyed it once. I'm not one of those type of people. Um, I actually got stung for the first time this year, really good. And let me tell you, it's right there. Actually, I got stung on that finger. You probably can't see it. There's a little bit of a blood spot there. But when your fingers are like cold, like you can hardly feel them. Feels like, and that cold feeling. Ian, you know what I'm talking about, right? When your fingers are cold and you smash them. Oh yeah. Well, when your fingers are really cold and then you get stung on that finger, it lets you know just how alive you truly are. Anybody that thinks, those weird people that think that, are we truly really here? We need to stick them up in Manitoba in January and then sting them on a finger. They'll know they're alive. I made Sandy's day. Well, that's great. It wasn't like I was, fudging the truth or anything, Ian. I mean, it's just fact. I mean, if you were buying something that had someone with like a similar face to yours on it, or my face, or had Sandy's or Laurel's face on it, which are you more prone to buy? I mean, come on, it's good marketing, and it's bee made. But again, people do things differently in Canada. Hey, Brian, thanks so much for that donation. I really appreciate that. Laurel's looking at me over here. I've got to get off here pretty soon. Okay, you want to start up the grill? Laurel's giving me that sweet little look of, you better hurry up. Women are so good at that, so subtle. I'm in trouble. Anyways, seriously though, I've got a party going on tonight just for a few friends that helped with the conference and stuff like that, and were really instrumental this last year in 2020 that helped us get our nukes out to sell, that helped us deliver honey, and also again with the conference and several things. And they're really special young people that actually know how to work, and they're not too big of bums. But anyways, I've actually got to get off of here. I was supposed to get off a little while ago. Laurel told me to. I've got to start the grill and start grilling hamburgers and hot dogs. We'll be doing another live chat. I'll announce it in a video ahead of time, though. I'm going to try to do better about that. Try to give at least a week heads up. Do it in one of the videos right before it starts so people can know when it's coming up and be more prepared. I hope that this live chat has been maybe a little bit helpful to folks. It's been a lot of fun getting to talk to you all again. And I will keep you up to date on the experimental yard and all of that stuff. It's super exciting. And also, when we start selling queens, just follow me on Facebook if you do that. I totally understand if you don't do Facebook. I wouldn't do it if it wasn't for beekeeping. And then YouTube, just when I start selling queens or trying to sell a handful of nukes here and there, just be watching out for it because they will go quick. And I'll also be selling some wooden equipment and stuff. Hey, Ian, it's always good chatting with you, buddy. Take care up there. Hope you guys get a little bit of warm weather to kind of help you out a little bit, which for you just might be breaking, 20 degrees, but whatever. Anyways, hey, lazy dogs, thank you so much. You're heading to spring there in Florida, no brood break at all. That's kind of rough, but just keep on top of those mites and take care of those bees. And I hope this is your best year ever. Everyone, thanks so much. We will talk to you soon. God bless you.